Well, the Cotton Bowl Classic was exactly that. It was a classic game. And really, honestly, it was a classic Lincoln Riley game. Defense in big games does not show up. At least that's what happened at the end of this ball game for the Trojans. And that's why Tulane gets the victory 46-45. Steve, this was a fantastic game. Honestly, when I was watching this one, USC looked good initially at the beginning of this one. I was thinking that USC was just going to run away with this one. Caleb Williams looked really good, 462, 5 touchdowns, did have one pick, was a pretty iffy pick, if you will. But at the end of this game, there was some bad, boneheaded decisions by USC, starting off with a kick return that was fumbled at the 1 yard line and then turned into a safety by Tulane from Patrick Jenkins from Tulane, and then turned into a touchdown for the Green Wave that gave them the lead finally at the very end of this one. 46-45 final for Tulane. Hey, this is a team that we were not sure if they were deserving to be that group of 5 team to make the appearance at the NY6 Bowl, right? Well, they proved that they deserved to be there. And not only did they deserve to be there, they win the game against a team that we thought for the longest time until the Pac-12 championship that we might be seeing a Trojan team in the college football playoffs. So not only does USC not make it to the college football playoffs, they don't win the Cotton Bowl. Hey, Caleb Williams, you still got the Heisman. Congratulations. But I feel like that's just not, it doesn't feel that good anymore. Pretty bittersweet. What was your thoughts on this game?
You know what kept popping in my head? Caleb Williams is the LeBron James now of college football. I mean, I'm so talented, but really, if you break it down, he's probably the most talented quarterback in Division I, and probably across all divisions. But it's just not enough. I mean, you know, it just seems that the surrounding cast always lets him down somehow. At first, I was watching the game, and I'm like, well, you know, a couple of bad breaks, and that's why USC is not in the national college football playoff. But then you see a game like that, and then you kind of think back. USC was constantly putting themselves in a situation where they had to pull up almost an impossible play or impossible drive in order to win games. So they kind of did it to themselves. And the fact that Tulane played that game was played with heart. Tulane went out there and they wanted to show people that were questioning them, whether they should be in this game. The good thing about it being a new year is I can say, well, that was 2022. So now I have a couple of days I can wiggle and say, hey, this is 2023, and this is what Feck thinks now. But no, but
yeah,
honestly,
new year, new you. I get that.
Yeah. I mean, again, I still think that UTSA, because of the unique talent that they had on both sides of the ball, they should have been the representative to the Cotton Bowl. You know, a home state school, the whole deal. I'll still say that, you know, till the day I die, and probably will be Tulane fans that end up killing me here after this video. But Tulane showed that they belonged. And you and I were on Tulane pretty early, actually, saying, you know, don't overlook Tulane. You know, don't overlook Tulane. And they earned that conference championship, and they earned that spot on national TV. And I mean, the Cotton Bowl, okay, now with all the bowl systems, maybe it's not as prestigious when it's a standalone. But I mean, you and I remember when the Cotton Bowl was like the game to watch early, you know, on New Year's Day.
I'd say this is probably the second biggest bowl game that's not in the playoffs. That's probably fair to say. You probably can give the nod to the Rose Bowl as the premier bowl game that's not in the college football playoffs, and then I would give the Cotton Bowl number 2. You're right about Tulane, though. And it's interesting that we've seen 2 years in a row now that an American team from the American Conference has done great things in the bowl season or the college football playoffs. You know, Cincinnati last year, now they didn't win their semifinal game, but they made it. That's really an impressive feat, the first group of 5 team to do that. And then Cincinnati, we knew they was going to have some kind of an off year. They stuck around for a lot longer than you and I both thought were going to. And then Tulane comes out of nowhere. I think this is probably the craziest stat. Is that Tulane was terrible last year. I mean, you look at their record last year, they were not good at all. And they turn around and have a 12-2 season and win the Cotton Bowl. That is, I mean, if you are not giving the nod, and I know he didn't get it. I know Sonny Dykes got coach of the year, but the fact you're not giving, you know, Fritz the coach of the year, I mean, it really needs a little bit of a little bit of things to look at. However, looking at this team, looking at USC, and the reason they lost this game, their offense did look pretty good for the most of this, the majority of this, and they did it without Travis Dye. They did it without Jordan Addison. You could totally make that argument that if they had those players, maybe this ball game would be completely different. You could make that
Right.
argument. I'm not going to, not here
No,
on this
yeah, no,
show.
neither am I.
How,
Yeah, but
and because that's just what the world we live in now with the transfer portal situation and entering for the draft. That if you don't make the college football playoffs, some of these players don't see the value in playing in bowl games, and I don't blame them if you have longevity and money on the line moving forward. As for Tulane, though, Michael Pratt was very, very fun to watch in this one. And I know he did good throwing the football. He had 234, 2 touchdowns. But I think what was the most entertaining to me was his running game. Now, I know Ty J. Spears had a fantastic running game. He had such a good running game that he declared for the NFL draft as soon as this game was over. And I don't blame him one bit. I mean, he was 205, 4 touchdowns. I mean, run that hype train as long as you possibly can. Find yourself into being a day 2 pick and make an NFL roster. Go for it. Good luck, please. But Michael Pratt, there was just some amazing things that he did in this game that just really caught my eye. And yes, it was some great passing games, but there were some really good read option and quarterback draws he did. And you could just tell that he was just fully in tune with reading that defense. And he found some very good long rushes on that one. I know one of them was as long as 40 yards. I was just very impressed by Michael Pratt. I'm looking forward to seeing what's next of him. I know he's just a junior. I don't know if he's going to declare or if he's going to stay at Tulane. I really hope he does, because this Tulane team has the opportunity to maybe potentially be, dare I say, last year's Cincinnati. If they keep up this pace right now, going from a 2-win team last year to a 12-2 win team this year, I mean, the only option is to either get worse, which I don't see happening because I'm guessing there's going to bring more into the window, and then you can find yourself maybe as one of those top 4 teams. I mean, it's not impossible. We saw it with Cincinnati last year, Steve.
yeah, and I think a season like this for Tulane, they're always going to be, the little brother, to LSU as far as football recruiting goes. But when Tulane is good, they've had a history of being able to get top level talent to that school, and LSU can't bring everybody in. So I mean, there's enough really good football being played, in Louisiana, in southern Mississippi, in Arkansas, in East Texas, that Tulane can take the leavings, if you will, and still put together a really talented roster. And you talk about Pratt, he's the perfect kind of guy to go to Tulane because they can go to him and say, look, you know, they're going to try to harness you in. They're going to try to change the way you play football. We want you to be you. We want you to play that game. We know you have special talent. I mean, you look at Pratt, I compare him a lot to Frank Harris, where he plays in control. It looks like he's all over the place, but he's always in control. He can read defenses. We saw that in both of their big wins, in their big American Conference wins throughout the year. So for him to now perhaps benefit from not only transfer portal coming in, because now Tulane's not a joke. The American Athletic is getting more national recognition. They're coming off a big bowl win on New Year's Day. Now he's going to have even more talent surround him. So I think it would really benefit him to stay that extra year. All
Yeah.
right, at least, and not go out. And I mean, is it really going to matter if he's drafted in the fifth, sixth round? No, probably not. But he could play his way into the upper rounds of day 2 and go forward. So yeah, Tulane, it's just one of those schools that I love when they're good, and it doesn't happen nearly as often as it should in football. But when it is good, I mean, the alumni from that university, they turn out. I had the pleasure of going to a bunch of Tulane games, and even when in years when they weren't good, they were, the crowd was just electric.
When you think of Tulane and what's going to happen next year, just honestly, the American Athletic Conference is going to be very, very
Yes.
interesting to watch next year with the new additions coming over from Conference USA. I know some teams are moving over to the Big 12, but I mean, it's going to be a very interesting American Conference, to say the absolute least. And speaking of USC, let's talk about them now. Obviously, 3 losses on the season now. This is their first loss to a team that wasn't Utah. Now, obviously, we know in the regular season they had that crazy 2-point conversion loss game, and then we see this 1 point loss in the Cotton Bowl. We know the Pac-12 championship game was just a complete nightmare for them. Is this a disappointing season for USC? I know what they had with all these players coming in the transfer window. This is the first year under Lincoln Riley for them. You know they're going to have to rebuild again with all these players that are probably going to enter the NFL draft. That it's going to happen again. I'm sure they can find those players. USC is one of those programs, but was this a disappointing year for them? And do you think they can get back to the same spot they were, or if not better, next season under year 2 under Lincoln Riley?
Well, for me, again, I'm not a USC fan, but I thought it was a fantastic season for them. This played out better than I think even Lincoln Riley had hoped. He's really put USC truly back on the map. He just has a knack of finding talent, recruiting talent, using the transfer portal to bring in really the cream of the crop, both from the high school level, the JUCO level, and then through the transfer portal. He's going to have a chance now to actually build a defense.
Good point.
And not have the electric football style defense where oh no, their two defensive backs got hooked up and now they're spinning around in a circle watching people go past them. I mean, I think that's where, while Lincoln Riley is, I wouldn't say a defensive coach by any means, but I think he's going to be able to get top talent on the defensive end of the thing to come in to supplement what the Trojans already have. Because, I mean, again, if you're going to try to bring people into the transfer portal, you're talking about USC, Los Angeles, sunny California, and all of that. That's going to turn a lot of young kids' heads. It's going to be the rare player that's going to say, well, boy, I mean, USC would be exciting, but I think I'm going to go play at Nebraska because, of opportunity. No, they're going to say, no, I want to be there. Okay.
Yeah,
I want to be around all of that.
And you got to think that they're going to actually dip into those pipelines a little more too, with the addition of them moving to the Big Ten. So I think not only are they going to have the success they've already had with transfers and recruiting, you got to think that both USC and UCLA's recruiting is going to improve moving forward. You have to think that, right? You got to think that they're going to dip and compete against those Ohio States, those Michigans. They're not going to be afraid to do it. I know they're already competing against them. That's probably a bad way to say it, but now they're going to really be more aggressive in certain areas that they probably weren't in years past.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, you made a great point there. And it's those two programs, in essence, now have no excuse not to get progressively better over with it going into the Big Ten. I mean, certainly their television exposure is going to increase dramatically. And you think in the second biggest market in America, in Los Angeles, that wouldn't be the case. But the Pac-12 is still trying to figure out its media strategy. So going into the Big Ten, they're going to be all over television every week. They're not going to have to sit back and wait. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of USC, UCLA games that'll be a Big Ten network game only. They're going to be over on Fox and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, I think the sky's the limit if you're a USC fan. And you'll be moving to the coast, so you're going to be able to see a lot more of them, in real time. I'm going to stay up until whatever godforsaken time it is they kick off. So it's going to be another great addition. You're going to be able to watch, in essence, your East Coast and Central Time Zone favorites in the Big Ten. Yeah, right, exactly. Play out there. That's just amazing. But USC, okay, they did it to themselves, but I will argue that maybe they played above their heads. They were just so talented on the offensive side of the ball. They got away with a lot of things with another recruiting class. I think Lincoln Riley is going to be able to really build a program, not just a super team.
Yeah, we're going to have you ready to go and all primed up and ready and prepared this offseason for teams like USC, UCLA, and Tulane too. We're not going to forget about this green wave. Okay. I think we're riding it pretty well. This is going to be a fun team to pay attention to because I think they're going to build and they're going to be just as good, scary good. And then we're going to try and find those teams. I think we're going to try and do a better job to try and find those teams that who will be the next Tulane, who will go 2-10 to 12-2. I'm going to hope it's Old Dominion, but that's just my thoughts on that one. I don't know if that's the case, but we'll have you covered here at Slasher U throughout the offseason with college football, with transfers, with breaking news, and a whole bunch more here. So be sure to be tuning in here every single day as we bring you new content for a whole bunch of college football, college basketball, moving forward, baseball, and college softball as well. So thank you for listening to Slasher U.